You flip off the light, the familiar blanket draped over you, and the room falls into silence. Yet, even though your body feels weary and your eyes half closed, your mind begins to party. Thoughts flood in like crowds pushing through a midnight train station, the unpaid bills, tomorrow's meeting, an offhand comment from earlier, even events from 10 years ago pounding on your door. You lie there, nothing dangerous, nothing urgent, except a restless feeling you cannot shake. If at this moment you find yourself quietly calculating how many hours of sleep you might still get, or feeling like the only one awake in a world sound asleep, you are not alone. Millions of people, everywhere, are tossing and turning just like you. Not because they are not trying, but because there is one thing in trying harder. The harder it eludes you, and that thing is sleep. In this video, we will not attempt to fix insomnia. Instead, we will look directly at it, gently, calmly, through the lens of meditation and Buddhist teachings. Because sometimes, what is needed is not sleep, but awakening. Not awakening to the outside world, but awakening to yourself, to a mind trapped in repetitive loops and a silent loneliness no one else sees. Welcome to a 2-hour journey, a walking meditation in the dark. Here, you do not need to change anything. You just need to be present. You just need to listen. And perhaps, you just need to breathe. There are nights when everything outside has quieted, and yet inside you begins to stir. You lie still in the darkness. No blue light from your phone. No footsteps or traffic noise outside, but in your head echoes countless invisible sounds. A ceaseless dialogue among versions of yourself. The worrier, the regretful one, the blaming one, the hopeful one. They argue to retell old stories, to draw future scenarios, or to ask, am I truly living in alignment with my choices? You attempt to soothe your mind with a sigh, but it does not relent. Like a child refusing sleep, it insists on pulling you into a game of analysis, comparison, judgment, rehearsal, yet that game offers no reward. This is what the Buddha called the monkey mind, a restless consciousness jumping from thought to thought, out of habit, reacting without purpose. Once, a young monk came to Zen master Bankei and complained, I try my hardest to stop thinking every time I meditate. But my mind is like a caged monkey, unless I try to restrain it. It goes wild all the more. Bankei smiled and asked, can you point out that monkey for me? The monk froze, confused. Bankei continued, if you cannot point it out, how do you know it exists? Let it jump. You just sit and observe. That is the essence of meditation, not banishing thought, but realizing you are not your thoughts. When you stop getting drawn into those mental streams, they lose their power. Like clouds drifting across the sky, they may be dark, but they cannot harm the sky behind them. You may never have named it, but that feeling, when your mind sways while your body lies still, is a modern form of suffering. Not suffering from hunger or disaster, but suffering because your own mind clings to you when all you want is peace. Dukkha, the suffering that the Buddha spoke of, is not far away. It lives in sleepless nights, unanswered questions that spin in your head, moments when you feel like you have everything yet still lack a nameable peace. At this moment, you are touching the deepest human experience, the helplessness when reason stops helping, the doubt that even a good life may leave you anxious. The answer is not about what you did wrong, but about not recognizing one thing. It is not that you have lost control, but that you are trapped by the illusion that you can control everything. Even your mind. Maybe no one has ever told you this, but I will say it now. It is okay if you cannot sleep. It is okay if your mind is noisy like an afternoon market in a stifling sunset. The only thing you need to do now is not fight it, but step back, sit down within yourself, and simply observe. Sleep does not come by force. It comes when you stop searching. Just as peace does not come from solving all problems, but from giving up the idea that you have to solve them before allowing yourself to rest. Like a stranger knocking late at night, if you do not open the door, they will leave, but if you let them talk endlessly, you will never sleep. The mind is the same. You need not do anything except refuse the invitation. Just recognize it as a guest, not the host. Then tonight will pass, just as all the nights before have passed. There is something strange in how the human mind operates, the later it gets. When external sounds retreat, when the lights go off, when worldly concerns are set aside, that is precisely when the internal meetings begin to ignite. A father thinks of his child studying far away and wonders if past advice was enough to keep them from mistakes. A mother recalls the moment her daughter left with a tightened face, wondering if she lost her child's trust. A middle-aged man suddenly remembers a bad investment from 8 years ago, bringing with it a nameless feeling of failure. All these streams of thought seem to rendezvous with the night, silently lining up and stepping onto the stage of consciousness to replay old worn scenarios. The mind, when the body most needs rest, becomes a theater that never closes. The Buddha called that state dukkha, suffering, not in the ordinary sense of illness or poverty, but as a feeling of incompleteness, of unsatisfaction, as if a brick in your life's wall is missing and you cannot locate it. Once, a man came to a well-known meditation master. He said, "I have everything, a happy family, a good job, enough money, but every night when I lie down, I feel a certain emptiness that has no name. I feel like a failure though I have never truly failed." The master looked at him with compassion and said, "Your suffering is not about what you lack, but that you cannot accept that you may not need completeness as you assumed. That emptiness does not need filling, it just needs to be acknowledged." That answer did not instantly change him, but years later, he recounted that moment as the turning point that helped him learn to enter sleep without carrying burdens in his mind. Our minds are simply not used to silence. It is like a machine accustomed to operating. So even when there is nothing to do, it creates work for itself, rummaging through memories, comparing oneself, imagining worst-case scenarios, questioning what has passed and planning for what is to come. The greatest gifts of human thought, analysis, reasoning, imagination, sometimes become burdens when they run at the wrong time. In the darkness of the night, with no distractions outside, the mind steps on the gas pedal because it fears that if it stops, it will vanish. What the mind does not know is that you do not need it to run all the time. You are still here even when you are not thinking. You still have value even when you have solved nothing. You are still you, whether the mind is noisy or quiet. A meditation teacher once compared the human mind to a glass of murky water. The more you stir it, the cloudier it gets. Only when you set the glass down and leave it alone do the impurities begin to settle, revealing its original clarity. The mind works the same way. You do not need to force it into silence. Just stop stirring. Just allow everything to be as it is. If you find yourself restless tonight, it is not because you are weak or have made a mistake. It is simply because you are living in an age where alertness is mistaken for anxiety, and unease has become a survival reflex. You are living in a world that teaches you to control everything: your job, your health, your emotions, even your sleep. So when control fails, you assume you have failed. But maybe what you need most right now is not control, but surrender. Not a solution, but space. A space where you are allowed to not know. To not have it all figured out. To simply be someone walking through the night, not needing to find the sunrise just yet. When someone lies awake in the middle of the night, eyes wide open while all the lights are off, what keeps them tossing and turning is not the sound of traffic or a slight hunger. It is the whispering rehearsal of unnamed concerns quietly playing out in their head. The human mind has a strange tendency. Just when the body begins to release tension, it shifts into overdrive, as if trying to finish the day's leftover business. A decision still pending, a sentence left unsaid, a mistake thought forgotten from last year, suddenly knocking at the door of your awareness. These thoughts arrive without order, without invitation, but always knowing how to make you feel like something is missing. It is in those quiet moments, when logic and instinct quietly step back, that the first noble truth appears most clearly, not during storms, but in stillness, not in crisis, but in those nights where nothing seems urgent, except your inability to rest. One day, someone visited Zen Master Hakuin and said, "Master, I have everything: fame, a career, a family. So why do I still feel uneasy every night?" Hakuin looked straight at him and asked, "When you are sad, where do you go?" The man answered, "I work harder, travel, meet friends, read books, do charity." The master nodded, then said, like someone whose roof is leaking, but instead of fixing it, keeps buying new vases to hide the water stains. The man fell silent. Hakuin continued, "You are not wrong to run, but the water still leaks. And night still comes. Your suffering is not about how much or how little you have, but in your refusal to sit down and look at the empty space. Because you avoid it, it keeps growing every time you close your eyes." His words were like a mirror with no decoration, reflecting the formless pain modern people carry. They may achieve all their goals, yet their minds remain restless, because they equate peace with achievement, rather than accepting that peace is a state that needs no reason. Dukkha, in its original Pali meaning, does not only mean suffering in a heavy sense, but that subtle feeling of something missing that prevents full contentment. Like a wheel that is slightly misshapen, it still rolls, but not smoothly. A person, surrounded by every modern comfort, can still feel like a part of them is missing and not know how to name it. Nighttime is when these missing pieces emerge. Whether it is a young person uncertain about their career path, or someone past midlife quietly questioning the meaning of their years, all share a common kind of suffering: the unease that comes from not being as settled as they believe they should be. This is not a personal failure. It is the nature of the mind. The Buddha, when he was still Prince Siddhartha, saw this clearly even while living in a palace of luxury. He did not leave because of lack, but to understand why having everything still did not feel like enough. The essence of suffering does not lie in circumstances, it lies in reaction. Someone sleeping on a hard floor may sleep soundly if their mind is calm, while another on the softest bed may toss and turn if their mind is chaotic. The issue is not the sleep, but what your mind thinks about not sleeping. Not how many problems you have in life, but the story you tell yourself about those problems. When you believe that sleeplessness means something is wrong, your mind resists that state. When you believe you should be asleep, should be calm, should be happy, you create a standard, an ideal, and suffer for not reaching it. That is a deep form of suffering. Suffering because things are not as you think they should be. Like someone walking down a road but constantly stopping to compare it to others, then blaming themselves for choosing wrong. If right now you feel tired, lost, or simply restless, there is nothing wrong with you. You are just brushing up against the first noble truth the Buddha pointed to. A truth not easy to accept, but the foundation of all transformation. Because only when you dare to name your suffering, can you begin to listen to it. Not to get rid of it, but to understand, not to run from it, but to live with it, like a temporary companion. After all, what is keeping you awake is not weakness or a failure to keep up with life, it is because you are still alive. Still caring. Still hoping for something honest and real. Only those who live sincerely with themselves endure long nights. But within long nights, the seeds of morning are planted. And in the darkness, sometimes, people see their own minds the clearest. In the deepest part of the night, when you have tried everything, from counting sheep to shifting your pillow over and over just to summon a hint of drowsiness, you may have unknowingly stepped into a territory the Buddha named over 2,000 years ago. The land of the Four Noble Truths that every human must pass through. Not truths about the physical world, but truths about the very inner experience you are now tasting. The Four Noble Truths may sound distant, reserved for monks in high mountains, but they are in fact a psychological map for you. The one lying here, unable to sleep, not because your body is tired but because your mind is too awake. You do not need to memorize them. You are already living inside them. The first truth, dukkha, you have already met. It is that feeling of imbalance, of lack, of dissatisfaction. Even though nothing specific has gone wrong, it could be the emptiness you feel staring at the ceiling in the dark. It could be the unnamed sense of failure. Even after finishing all your tasks today, it is the whisper that says, I should be doing better than this, even though no one said so out loud. The second truth, samudaya, is the cause of that suffering. It does not come from other people, the weather, or the ticking clock. It comes from within, from the invisible desires like, I must fall asleep now. I must do better. Life must be different, or at a deeper level. I must control everything before I can feel at peace. These desires, even when disguised as responsibility or ambition, pull you away from the present. You are not lying in the night, you are running in your mind. Once, a scholar came to a well-known Zen master to inquire about the path to enlightenment. He spoke non-stop. I have read every sutra, studied karma, impermanence, and the Noble Eightfold Path, yet my heart is still not at peace. Why? The Zen master said nothing. He simply poured tea into the scholar's cup. When the cup was full, he kept pouring. The tea spilled over, soaking the table, dripping onto the master's sleeve. Alarmed, the scholar exclaimed, Master, it is overflowing. The master paused, smiled, and said, "Your mind is overflowing in the same way. How can you receive anything new when it is already filled with ideas of what should and should not be?" This simple story is a vivid illustration of the second noble truth, samudaya. We suffer not because we lack something, but because we are too full of ideas we do not know how to let go of. However, the Buddha did not stop at identifying suffering and its root cause. He went further with the third truth, nirodha, that suffering can end. Not by eliminating all thoughts, not by achieving everything we desire, but by changing our relationship to what is happening. You do not need to stop thinking. Just stop believing that every thought is true. You do not need to force yourself to sleep. Just stop believing that not sleeping is a failure. Cessation does not mean erasing all emotions, but becoming free from being ruled by them. Like a climber who finally realizes, not every stretch of the path needs to be rushed. Sometimes it is enough to pause, admire the clouds, and breathe. The final truth, magga, or the path, is the way out of this cycle. It is not a three-step shortcut, nor a magical ritual that switches off the mind like a light. It is the noble eightfold path, 8 elements that guide you back to awareness and understanding. In this moment, as you lie here in the middle of the night, the most important among them is right mindfulness, the ability to be fully present. Without judgment, without tension, without effort, you do not need to meditate the right way. You only need to know, I am lying here. I am breathing. My mind is running, and that is not wrong. Silence is not a requirement for spiritual practice. Simply gazing into your own inner noise without trying to escape it is already a deep form of meditation. The 4 noble truths are not magic phrases to make suffering disappear. They are a map pointing out that even when you are lost in darkness, there is still direction, not a direction for escaping, but for understanding. And once you understand, the weight begins to lift. Once lighter, maybe you will sleep, and if not, at least you are beginning to let go of some burden you thought you had to carry. There is a strange irony in our age. We have every tool to control the external world, from smart calendars to sleep aids. Yet the inner world remains the hardest to manage. You can lock the door, turn off your phone, dim the lights, play relaxing music, and still not quiet your mind. Every night, when the world settles down, the mind kicks in like it has been programmed to scan your life for errors. Conversations left unfinished, bills unpaid, past decisions, all become a never-ending train of thoughts racing through your consciousness. In such moments, the 4 noble truths discovered by the Buddha are no longer abstract philosophy. They become a clear mirror reflecting the modern human experience of suffering. The first truth, dukkha, does not deny happiness, but it reveals that even during fine moments, people may still feel off, not because they are miserable, but because deep down, something always feels missing, like a feast laid out on the table, but the person eating is not hungry. This suffering is not as sharp as physical pain, but it lingers, like a quiet sigh before bedtime. Suffering hides in absence, in the absence of connection, meaning, or the ability to stop thinking. In this context, you do not need a life crisis to be suffering. One sleepless night, one restless mind, is enough to touch the first noble truth. Then comes the second truth, samudaya, the cause of suffering. It is not the world outside. It is the attachment within, not the stress of work, but the belief that you must always be perfect. Not the behavior of your children, but the belief that they must follow your ideal path for you to feel at ease. This clinging to the idea that everything must be right becomes the fertile ground where suffering grows. There is an old Zen tale about a man haunted by his own shadow. Wherever he went, the shadow followed. He ran, it chased him. He hid in the shade, it stayed with him. Exhausted, he collapsed and died. Only then did the shadow vanish. The story sounds like a fable, but it perfectly captures the modern mind. The more we chase perfection and fear the future, the more our minds become shadows we cannot escape. It is the attachment to how things should be that creates a deeper suffering than sorrow itself. But the Buddha did not leave us stranded in awareness of pain. The third truth, Nirodha, is the candle lit in the cave. It says, suffering can end, not by fleeing life, nor by fulfilling every wish. The end does not come from outside. It comes when we look deeply into the nature of suffering and realize we are allowed to let go. When you let go of expectations, the mind can rest. When you let go of the need to control, the body can relax. Once, a young monk asked Ajahn Chah, "What should I do to stop the pain when I sit too long in meditation?" Ajahn Chah smiled kindly and said, "You do not need to do anything. Just stop calling it pain." At the time, the monk did not understand. But later, with practice, he realized the pain was still there, but the resistance was gone. Without resistance, pain was no longer suffering. Without resisting the present moment, sleeplessness was no longer failure. The fourth truth, Magga, the path, is not a foggy road to liberation in some distant future. It is a living path, step by step, breath by breath. It is how you exhale and notice that you are breathing. It is how you witness a thought rise and let it float away like a cloud. It is how you gently say to yourself, "I am awake, so I will be awake with peace." The path does not require a long journey. It begins right here tonight, in this involuntary stillness in which you find yourself lying. Right mindfulness, right thought, right concentration, none of these are demands. They are invitations, an invitation to return, to soften, to stop fighting a battle that does not need to be won. These four noble truths do not live in thick scriptures or lofty sermons. They live in each breath you struggle to take between restlessness. You do not need to memorize them. You only need to look honestly. When you do, suffering becomes a teacher. Attachment becomes a mirror. Letting go becomes freedom. And each breath, even in the middle of the night, is a step on the path. There are nights when people lie awake, not because of noise, not because of light, but because of something quieter than silence, something no one can see, no one can name, yet it stirs the mind like waves beneath a still lake. You cannot quite pinpoint what it is. You just know it feels like a tiny stone lodged in your chest. You might think you cannot sleep because your blanket is not warm enough, because you drank coffee earlier, or because of the steady whir of the fan, but the deeper reason is that your mind has been pushed away from the present. Not far away, but outside of this very moment, drifting into what was and what has not yet come. Every thought of tomorrow, every regret from yesterday, every should have, or what if, is a thread pulling you away from the peace that has always been here. In that moment, Even if you are lying in a quiet room, a battle has begun within. A battle without gunfire, yet filled with anxiety, resistance, effort, and disappointment, enough to leave your body as exhausted as if you had spent an entire day climbing uphill. In the midst of such nights, the Buddha's Four Noble Truths do not arrive as doctrine, but as a whisper, light, yet piercing. Suffering is when your body is here, but your mind is not. The cause is the belief that you are not allowed to be this way, not allowed to be awake, to be vulnerable, to be worried. The cessation of suffering comes when you realize there is nothing wrong with being awake, only with believing that being awake is wrong. And the path is when you stop trying to fix, stop trying to change, and simply return to the breath. In the breath, there are no questions and no answers, only presence. A young novice once asked his old Zen teacher, "Master, what should I do when I worry too much?" The master was sweeping leaves and, without looking up, replied, "Keep sweeping." The novice thought his question had been brushed off, and asked again, "But you do not understand. I worry about everything, the future, my work, my health." The teacher put down the broom, looked him in the eye and asked, "When you are worrying, do you stop sweeping?" The boy nodded. The teacher said gently, "Then sweep. When you return to what you are doing, worry has no place to stay." That short exchange held a vast doorway. The way out of suffering is not found in solving every problem, but in being present with what is here. Sometimes people think waking up in the middle of the night is a sign of anxiety. But through the lens of the Dharma, it may be your first moment of true awakening. Not awakening from sleep, but from the unconscious cycle of reaction, fear, and avoidance. Each time you notice yourself overthinking, resisting reality, that is a chance to return. You do not need to cleanse your mind, because the mind is not a dirty room. It is more like the sky. Clouds may be thick or dark, but they have never damaged the sky itself. Your mind is the same, no matter how many worries pass through. Whether sleep comes or not, the deepest part of you remains as still as the sky behind the clouds. The Four Noble Truths do not require you to reach a special state. They only ask you to see, truly see, what is happening. To see without labeling, without misinterpreting, without trying to fix. When you look in this way, suffering is no longer the enemy, it becomes a doorway. Not a mark of failure, but an invitation to return. Even if you do not sleep tonight, you have begun walking the path. A path that leads nowhere. Because it always begins and ends right here, at this breath. In this moment, where your mind is never too late to come home. In the quietest hours of night, there is a sound only you can hear. Though it comes from no device or object, it is the tangled sound of your own mind. It does not scream or shout, but it lingers like the drip of water from an old roof, impossible to ignore. Just when you think you are finally about to fall asleep, it flicks on a thought like a tiny spark, a conversation left unfinished, a mistake from years ago, a vague sense of dread about what might come. Thought leads to thought, like a string of beads scattered across the floor of your soul. You are not running away, but you cannot stop either. In that state, you begin to understand why Zen teachers call the human mind monkey mind, constantly jumping from branch to branch. Never still. There is a legend in Zen Buddhism about a young monk who, during his early days on the mountain, found his meditation plagued by thoughts. He would think of his parents, worry about life in the village below, wonder if he had chosen the right path. One day, he stood before his teacher and said, "Master, every time I try to sit still, my mind leaps like a hungry monkey, from one thing to another. I cannot stop it." The Zen master looked at him and said, "Then make friends with the monkey." The young monk thought it was a metaphor. But the next day, instead of trying to silence his thoughts, he simply sat and watched them pass, like someone observing monkeys in a forest. At first, the monkeys were wild, but gradually, when no one chased or shouted, they grew tired, bored, and quietly climbed into the trees and fell asleep. That story may sound simple, but it holds one of the deepest truths of meditation. You cannot defeat the mind by fighting it. You calm it by stopping the fight. The mind is not wrong for thinking too much. That is its nature, like wind blows, like clouds float. What wears you down is not the thoughts themselves, but believing that every thought must be true. A thought arises. If I do not sleep, I will be tired tomorrow. Then I will fail. Then people will judge me. If you see it as a cloud, it will drift away in seconds. But if you cling to it, feed it, it will soon become a storm. The only way out of the spiral is not to stop thinking, but to see thoughts like wind passing through leaves. Hear them rustle, and let them go without grabbing hold. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "You are not your thoughts. You are the one who knows you are thinking." If you let those words sink in, they open up a vast space between you and the waves in your mind. Like someone standing on a riverbank watching the current, no matter how muddy the water. You are still standing on solid ground. Even when 10 thoughts rush through your mind, if you can say, "Ah, this is a thought," then in that very moment, you are no longer swept away. You are awake. That awakening does not have to be dramatic. It might be a simple moment when you notice, "I am starting to worry about tomorrow," and then gently exhale and let it go. It might be a quiet, "Oh," when you realize you are retelling the same old story for the 100th time, the one you thought you had already moved past. Every time you recognize your mind repeating a habit, you take a step out of its unconscious grip. You do not need to chase the monkeys away. Just stop dancing with them. In the middle of the night, the miracle is not in stopping your thoughts. It is in realizing you do not have to believe every one of them. Like a driver on a long road who sees a sign saying, "Turn left into the forest," but knows full well they do not have to obey it. You can look, smile, and keep driving straight. Every thought is a signpost, but you are the one holding the wheel. When you remember that, you begin to step into a kind of freedom that no one can take from you. The freedom from the storm in your own mind. You do not need to wait until you are seated cross-legged beneath a quiet tree or have your phone switched off for an entire day to realize how exhausted your mind has become. Sometimes all it takes is lying down on an ordinary night, taking a long, gentle breath, and closing your eyes, quiet enough to hear the footsteps of a familiar but invisible being. Your monkey mind. The one that has followed you all these years without ever resting. It leaps from today's unfinished tasks to tomorrow's preparations. Then suddenly drags you back to an awkward moment at 15. Only to lurch forward again to the worst-case scenario of something that may never happen. These mental jumps have no order, no logic, and no invitation. Especially during moments when you most long for stillness. What makes it difficult is not that it thinks too much. but that you feel constantly dragged along, unable to pause, unable to control, unable to let go. Monkey mind, the ancient term used by Eastern meditation masters to describe a restless, wandering mind, is not your enemy. But it is not a reliable friend either. It is like a clever child who never stops talking, inventing scenarios, connecting unrelated ideas into a single thread, then convincing you that this story is real. Once, a layperson asked Master Linji, "Master, I cannot sleep every night because my mind feels like a marketplace, so noisy and crowded with thoughts. How do I make it stop?" The master did not answer immediately. Instead, he poured the man a cup of tea. While pouring, he asked, "When you walk through a noisy market, can you make everyone there be quiet?" The man shook his head. The master nodded and said, "Exactly. But there is one thing you can do. Do not stop. Do not engage. Do not shop. Just walk through." That is the essence of dealing with the monkey mind, not to suppress it, but to stop entangling with it. The mind itself is not bad. It is simply doing what it was built to do: observe, analyze, evaluate, and alert. The problem is, over the years, we have forgotten that we have the power to choose. Every time a thought arises, instead of simply observing it, we immediately identify with it. I am anxious. I have failed. I am not enough. This identification turns us from living beings into puppets of our own thought stream. Like someone watching a movie and getting so absorbed they forget they're sitting in a theater. Popcorn in hand, heart pounding with every scene. You are no longer the viewer. You have become the character. The mind is the same. When you are not aware, you live as if every word it says is truth, even though most of it is imagination, anxiety, or distorted memory. The key is not to stop thinking. That is nearly impossible, but to learn to see every thought as a passing cloud. They come, they go, they shift in form, but you remain. Like the sky, unchanged by the clouds drifting through it. The difference between someone caught in thought and someone awake is this: the awake person knows this is a thought, while the other believes this is truth. Meditation does not begin when the mind goes silent. It begins in the middle of its wild dance. Only when you can see the dance without joining it, do you truly step outside its grip. During long nights, if you cannot sleep, do not blame yourself. Do not try to force the mind into stillness. Watch it like a play you have seen many times before. Same characters, same lines, but this time, you are no longer part of the script. You are the audience. You sit there, breathe, and watch it unfold. No need to understand it all. No need to fix or change it. Awakening begins the moment you stop trying to control everything. The monkey mind may still jump, but you are no longer caged with it. You are standing outside, smiling. Here is a truth not everyone is ready to accept. Your mind is not always on your side. It is smart, creative, fast, but because of that, it can also be your most silent saboteur, especially in the hours you most need peace. When you lie down at night and the world outside has gone to sleep, another world begins to stir, the one inside your head, where hundreds of uninvited thoughts start showing up. They ask for no permission, follow no order, and arrive like a flood. A passing memory, an unfinished plan, a regret without a name, all combine into a storm of thought. Even when your body is tired, your mind will not stop. The irony is, the more you try to push them away, the more tightly they cling, like children who cry louder when scolded. In that reality, the teachings of ancient meditation masters are not mere theory, they are the only raft keeping you from being swept away. One autumn morning, a young monk asked Master Bankei, "Master, I have meditated for years but still cannot control my thoughts. My mind keeps running like a wild monkey. How can I make it calm down?" Bankei did not respond right away. He pointed toward a stream behind his hut and said, "Go sit by that stream. Do nothing, just listen." The monk obeyed and sat for hours. When he returned, the master asked, "Did the stream stop flowing?" The monk answered, "No, it kept flowing." Bankei nodded. "Exactly. Your mind is like that stream. The practice is not to dam it, but to learn not to be carried away." That answer may seem simple, but for many wandering through long nights, it is a lantern in the dark. Thought is the nature of mind, but awareness is the nature of the observer. When you are no longer the water, but the one standing on the bank, your journey home truly begins. The mind only becomes troubling when you forget that you are not your mind. When a thought arises, "I am failing. I am unworthy. Everyone is judging me," if you see it as a passing wind, it will be gone in moments. But if you believe it is the truth, you begin to build an entire world upon it. Like someone lost in a foggy forest who mistakes a hazy trail for a cliff edge, they stop walking, though just a few more steps would lead them out. A thought holds power not because it is right, but because you believe it. But when you sit down, look directly at each thought like a mother watching an upset child, not avoiding, not rushing to soothe. Truth reveals itself. There is nothing to fear. It is just a passing cloud. Many people are afraid of their own minds because they were never taught how to observe them. From a young age, we learn how to do math, write essays, give presentations, but no one teaches us how to look at our minds. We are praised for achievements, encouraged when we succeed, but few ever ask, "How is your mind doing right now?" So when the mind begins to spiral, our first instinct is, something must be wrong. We try to fix it, control it, shut it down. But the mind is not a machine. It is a garden. Sometimes it blooms, sometimes it sheds. Some days are full of sun, other days a breeze will stir up its leaves. You cannot command a garden to always look perfect, but you can sit beside it, quietly observe, gently tend to it, and trust that even if the leaves fall today, the flowers will return. The mind works the same way. When you stop blaming it for being unsettled, it will slowly calm itself because it no longer feels pressured to change. You do not need to silence the mind to be at peace. You simply need to stop fighting it. Just as a lake becomes clear when no one stirs its surface, the mind becomes bright when it is no longer forced to be different. That act of allowing, letting the mind be exactly as it is the deepest kind of letting go. It is the foundation of all meditation practice, of quiet healing, and of sleepless nights that no longer need to be feared. You do not need to sit cross-legged under a Bodhi tree or wear robes or ring bells. Sometimes the most profound meditation space is your own bed, not just a place meant for sleep, but a gateway into real stillness. If you are gentle enough to stop seeing it as a place to try to sleep, and begin to see it as a place to lay down all effort. One of the greatest paradoxes every insomniac knows is this: the more you try to sleep, the more it escapes you. Because that very desire carries tension, expectation, and fear. The harder you try, the more the mind works overtime, checking constantly to see if you are asleep yet. But sleep, by nature, only arrives when you let go of control. So if you cannot sleep, let go of trying. Begin to meditate, not to get a result, not to trade effort for peace, but simply to be present. You are lying there, doing nothing, but instead of letting the mind wander through its usual highways of thought, return to the simplest thing, the breath. No need to control it, no need to count, just feel it, the soft air at your nostrils, the gentle rise and fall of your belly, the warmth of the blanket against your skin, the slowing rhythm of your heart. These sensations, if you are kind enough to notice them, will open a silent space. In that space, you are no longer the one trying to do something. You are the witness to life unfolding within you. An old meditation master once shared that the first moment of insight in his life did not come during a retreat, nor while listening to a sermon, but on a bitterly cold winter night. Lying in bed with a fever, unable to sleep, exhausted and alone, he had no energy left to resist. All he could do was lie there. In that, just lying there, he began to feel each breath, the chill down his spine, the sound of wind howling at the window. For the first time, he was not trying to escape the moment, not trying to recover, not trying to sleep, not trying to feel normal. He was just present. When morning came, the fever remained, but his mind had shifted. Because that night, he no longer saw himself as someone sick, but as a small part of a much larger current, like the falling rain, the blowing wind, the rising day. So too, as you lie here, unable to sleep, do not see this as failure. See it as an invitation to return. You do not need to do anything to meditate. The very act of fully sensing each moment, whether it is a slight ache in your shoulder, a tickle in your toes, or a passing thought, is already meditation. Meditation is not a special state to reach. It is what you already are. When you stop wishing to be something else. In the dark, you can imagine yourself lying beside a still lake. The surface is calm, stars hang quietly overhead, pine trees rustle softly in the breeze. In the distance, a temple bell echoes like a voice from another time. You do not need to do anything with these images. Just let them pass through your mind like clouds. And you, like the lake, reflect, without holding on. Letting go does not mean giving up. It simply means stopping the struggle where struggle is no longer needed. Sleep does not come through effort, but through permission. Meditating in bed is not about doing something to sleep. It is about stopping everything that resists this moment. Only when you drop the expectation does your body truly rest. Only when you stop trying to force the mind into quiet does it begin to settle. Like sediment drifting down to the lake bed, leaving the surface clear again. If you are still awake, that is okay. You are not a failure. You are learning to be with yourself more deeply than ever. Maybe this is not the sleep you wanted, but it might be the peace you need. Under the night sky, as the last noises fade into silence, you are faced with a reality often masked by the busy day, one of a heart that has not rested in a long time. We usually think of the bed as an endpoint, a place where the body collapses after a long day. But if you look closely, it is also a beginning, the start of a journey that goes nowhere. but arrives exactly where you need to be, the present moment. In the soft dimness, as you lie under the covers, you are in the perfect place to practice the deepest form of meditation, the meditation of letting go. With no goal, no effort, no "I must," just presence in every sensation, every breath, every subtle shift within. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to meditate before sleep is treating it as a means to an end, specifically sleep. But sleep is not something you can chase with logic. Like peace, the more you chase it, the further it drifts. Imagine you are floating in a lake. The more you thrash, the more you sink. But when you stop struggling, when you lie back and let the water hold you, your body floats. Sleep is the same. It comes when you stop striving, stop seeking, stop blaming yourself for not reaching some right state. Bedside meditation requires no posture, no ritual. It begins right where you are. Just relax your whole body and pay attention to the contact between your body and the bed. Feel the pillow beneath your head, the blanket resting on your chest, the warmth in your hands, the faint coolness at the tip of your nose. Nothing else is needed. No need to chase thoughts away. They may still come, but you are no longer following them. Like someone sitting by a river, simply watching the water pass, not jumping in, not trying to catch every floating leaf. An old monk once said, "Do not try to stop your thoughts. Let them flow like the stream. Do not build a bridge. Do not dam the current. Just sit quietly by the shore." An old Zen story tells of a meditation student who, for many years, tried with all his might to achieve a state of a mind free from distraction. He practiced day and night, read all the sutras, followed every ritual, yet the harder he tried, the more chaotic his mind became. One day, completely exhausted, he fell ill and had to rest for weeks. During those days, too weak to meditate as before, he simply lay there, breathing and observing everything that came and went in his body and mind. Strangely, in that powerless surrender, he experienced true stillness for the first time, not because the thoughts had disappeared, but because he no longer followed them. When he recovered, he stopped meditating the way he used to. Instead, he lived his meditation. Every action, every breath, every moment became an opportunity to return. This story reveals a profound truth. Sometimes, transformation does not come from willpower, but from the courage to let go. In the night, as you lie motionless in the dark, with no one around, nothing to do, it is the perfect moment to return to yourself in the simplest way. No roles to play, nothing to prove, no standards to reach, just you, a breathing body, a living mind, and a fleeting moment that will never come again. Then, each breath is no longer a technique, but a bridge between you and the world. Each subtle shift of awareness becomes a step in your inner walking meditation. In that very simplicity, you may feel something surprising. You do not need to sleep to be at peace. You only need to stop resisting wakefulness. From there, tranquility begins to spread, not from the outside, but from within your own mind. There is no shortcut to real sleep, just as there is no shortcut to enlightenment, but both begin from the same point, the moment you stop running. The bed is not a battlefield where you win or lose against insomnia. It is a place to come home, a space where you are allowed to exist without being perfect. Meditation may not lead directly to sleep, but it will lead you back to life itself, quiet, gentle, and deep. And if you are lucky, when you finally release everything, sleep will come like a friend, no knock, no noise, just quietly stepping in. In the stillness of night, after you have turned off all the lights, put away your devices, and let your body completely relax on the bed, you may realize something. Your posture is right. Your eyes are closed. Your breathing is calm, and yet, something inside keeps your mind uneasy. Keeps sleep just out of reach. In that moment, if you keep struggling, you push it even farther away. But if you gently shift your perspective, if you stop seeing sleep as a task and begin seeing your bed as a quiet meditation hall, a sacred space for practicing presence, then even in wakefulness, you begin to awaken. Meditation is not just a method, it is a way of being. It shows up wherever your mind is fully present, even when you are lying awake in the middle of the night. Eyes open, but no longer holding onto fruitless effort. Perhaps you are used to thinking meditation must be done correctly, sitting cross-legged, spine straight, hands in mudra. But for those who have struggled with sleeplessness, learning how to meditate right in your own bed is a life-saving art. Not meditation to cure insomnia, but meditation that frees you from the fear of being awake, because it is that fear that truly keeps you restless. Long ago, in a small Japanese temple, a young novice often suffered from insomnia. Though he listened to Dharma talks and diligently meditated each night, he still lay awake for hours. One evening, he approached the elderly abbot and quietly asked, "Master, I have done everything, but I still cannot sleep. I meditate, chant, count my breath. What am I doing wrong?" The old master looked at him and said, "You are doing too much. Stop doing. Lie down like a stone. Breathe like a falling leaf at the end of autumn. Let your mind be as soft as water." The novice did not fully understand, but he obeyed. That night, instead of trying to practice, he simply lay there, no goal, no expectations. At some point, he could not even remember when. He fell asleep. When he woke, he was no longer afraid of the night, because he had learned to let go. Letting go is the key. Not letting go of responsibility or reality, but letting go of what does not need to be carried in this moment. As you lie down, imagine your whole body sinking into the mattress, as if you were dissolving into the surface beneath you. Let go of everything, including the desire to sleep. Do not push away any thoughts, not even the repetitive ones. Let them come, but do not hold them. Like clouds crossing the sky. Do not cling. Inhale. Know you are inhaling. Exhale. Know you are exhaling. That is enough. No more. No less. Bedside meditation is meditation of gentleness. No forcing. No expectations. Certainly no right or wrong. Every sensation in the body, every drifting thought, every heartbeat you can hear from within, each becomes the object of mindfulness. Each time you are aware of what is happening without reacting, you are meditating. Each time you accept the present moment without trying to change it, you are stepping beyond suffering. Gradually, even if sleep has not come, you no longer feel insomniac, because you are truly living each moment, not avoiding, not resisting, not clinging. In the darkness, you are not alone. You are practicing something profound that no one else can see, facing yourself. No longer chasing sleep as a goal. You are learning how to return home, to the place where the mind has nowhere to go and nothing to do, only to be. If sleep comes, let it. If not, that is fine too. You are still being healed. Moment by moment, in the quiet gentleness you offer to yourself. Some nights, sorrow does not arrive like a thunderstorm, but like a thin mist seeping through the cracks of your soul, slow, silent, but enough to blur everything. You might lie in a dark room, undisturbed, with no clear reason to feel uneasy, and yet, your heart feels heavy. A memory resurfaces, something left unsaid, a nameless sense of loss. That is when emotions appear, unpredictable, without logic. Maybe it is fear of an uncertain future. Maybe regret for something past. These feelings, big or small, if rejected or suppressed, will smolder like embers in the night, not roaring flames, but enough to consume your peaceful sleep. In Buddhist teachings, suffering does not lie in emotion itself, but in attachment and resistance. When you try to not feel sad, not be afraid, not get angry, you unintentionally place an extra burden on your mind. Emotions are like weather: sun warms, rain wets, wind chills, none of them are wrong. What makes you suffer is wanting the sky to always be clear. But the path of meditation is the path of acceptance, not to surrender, but to deeply understand that every state of mind has a right to exist, so long as you do not mistake it for who you are. A Zen story tells of a meditation teacher whose belongings were stolen one night. When people came to visit, they saw him still sitting in meditation on his porch. Someone asked, "Master, someone stole all your possessions. Are you not angry?" The teacher simply looked up at the sky and said, "He did not take the moon." His response did not deny the loss. It was a refusal to be swept away by anger or resentment. He understood that emotions come and go, like wind blowing over the rooftop. He neither clung to them nor forcefully rejected them. He simply let them pass, while his mind remained like a still lake, unshaken by wind, undisturbed by waves. Every emotion you experience during the night, whether it is worry about the future, unspoken loneliness, or lingering anger, is like a guest. If you lock the door, they may knock even harder. But if you open the door, invite them in, offer them a cup of tea in your mind, then sit and observe them as passing clouds, they will leave when the time is right. That is the practice of mindfulness with emotion. No labels of good or bad. No pressure to get over it. Just staying with that emotion as a compassionate friend. Without judgment, without avoidance. A woman once shared that during her husband's illness, she lost sleep each night due to fear of loss. She turned to meditation as a remedy for insomnia. But the harder she tried, the more sleepless she became. One evening she wept before her teacher. "I cannot meditate, because my heart is full of fear and resentment." The teacher smiled and said, "Then meditate with that fear. Sit down and invite it to sit beside you." That night, she did not try to chase the fear away. She breathed with it, acknowledged it, named it. "This is fear of losing someone I love." And then, for the first time in months, she slept, not because the fear disappeared, but because she stopped fighting it. The mind may think negative emotions are enemies, but the heart only longs to be heard. Each emotion is merely a wave of energy seeking release. If you let it flow naturally, it will dissipate like rain. If you hold it, analyze it, or suppress it, it becomes a frozen block inside. Meditation doesn't teach you to control emotion. It teaches you to become more expansive than any emotion. Just like the sky is never permanently obscured by clouds, your mind can return to calm when you do nothing except recognize. If tonight you lie there with an emotion rising in you, please don't rush to extinguish it. Light a candle inside, shine a mindful awareness on that emotion. Stay with it, like sitting beside a friend who cries, without advising, without preaching, simply present. In that presence, you are no longer a victim of emotion, but the spacekeeper who lets it pass. That is how you heal yourself, not through strength, but through compassion toward what you are carrying. When emotions arise, people typically react in two ways: try to push them away, or let them sweep you like a leaf caught in a tornado. Both reactions come from misunderstanding emotions. They arise like clouds, pass like wind, only become heavy when we cling or resist them. Many lie awake at night not because they cannot sleep, but because they carry an unspoken wound. When emotions are not acknowledged, they often manifest as insomnia, fatigue, racing heart, or a vague sense of imbalance. Even when nothing external seems wrong, inside it has become a battlefield. But instead of fighting on, could you choose instead to sit, listen, and gently smile at that wound? In a Dharma talk, Thich Nhat Hanh told of a woman who repeatedly lost sleep from guilt over her mother's death. Every night, she relived unspoken words, unsettled tasks. That emotion smoldered like hot coals under ash and could not be extinguished by reason. The teacher did not advise her to forget or forgive herself, but simply to sit quietly and breathe with that feeling. Breathe in, knowing that you are holding your sadness. Breathe out, gently acknowledging life still continues. After many nights of practice, she began to sleep, not because the grief vanished, but because she no longer saw it as an enemy. Acceptance was the beginning of transformation. Mindful practice with emotion is not management like a boss controlling employees. It is to become a wise friend who has enough space for every inner state to exist freely. If you are sad, breathe with that sadness. If you are anxious, do not rush to suppress it, let it be present, seen, named. In many meditation experiences, simply naming the emotion softens it by half. Like a crying child who just wants to be understood. Emotions only want to be recognized as they are, without labeling, without denial. A young monk once asked a Zen master, "Master, how do I eliminate afflictions?" The master replied, "Invite them for tea." At first, the monk thought it was a metaphor, but gradually, he understood. You do not need to eradicate affliction. You need only welcome it with equanimity. If each time anger arises you can sit and recognize, anger is present in me. Then breathe with that anger. You are no longer a victim. The anger may still burn, but it no longer controls your hands, your speech, your mind. You become the gatekeeper, not the one carried downstream. At night, when old emotions surface like unexpected visitors, offer them an open heart. Know that you don't need to understand everything, solve everything, or erase anything right now. Just recognize, I am feeling this. Then remain with that feeling, as if sitting beside a loved one in pain. No words, no actions, just presence, because that compassionate presence is the deepest healing balm for wounds never spoken. Emotions are not mistakes. They are part of being human. What matters is not what you feel, but whether you recognize it. In mindfulness, every emotion becomes a path back home. Nothing needs to be eliminated. No one needs to win. Only a heart big enough to hold yourself. To love yourself even when you feel weak, lost, wounded. When you no longer fear emotion. You no longer fear the night, loneliness, or yourself. Not every negative feeling needs to be fought. Some just need acknowledgement, like a cloud that dissolves once observed. People often think strength means not fearing, not being sad, not getting angry, but the real pain often comes not from the emotion itself, but from refusing to let it be. When we tell ourselves, I must not be weak, I shouldn't feel this, I need to overcome faster, we ignore this truth. The mind is like a garden, not always blooming. Sometimes with rainstorms, sometimes with dry soil, sometimes with debris, but none of that makes the garden lose its value. Emotions are the seasons of the heart. Sadness is autumn leaves falling. Anger is summer's heat. Fear is winter's chill. If you have enough patience to wait, you will see spring return. A meditation teacher once said, emotions are guests. The mind is the house. Let the guests in, but don't let them take over the bed. This may sound simple, but it holds profound wisdom. We have the right to feel anxiety, worry, even despair, but that doesn't mean we must identify ourselves with those emotions. When we recognize, I am feeling anxious, rather than, I am an anxious person, transformation begins. It is like watching rain from a covered porch. The rain still falls, but you remain dry. An old Chinese story tells of a man who dreamed each night that he was chased by a tiger. He woke in terror, breathless and drenched in sweat. Seeking peace, he asked a meditation teacher, "Why do I keep having this nightmare? Who is that tiger?" The teacher replied simply, "It is you." Surprised, the man asked, "The tiger is me?" The teacher nodded. "It is the part of you refuse to face. The more you run, the more it chases you. Only when you stop and turn to face it, does it cease." From that night on, he no longer ran in his dreams. When the tiger appeared, he looked into its eyes. At first he trembled. The next time, he stood still. The third time, the tiger stepped forward, regarded him silently, and then departed. After that, he was no longer haunted by nightmares. Each difficult emotion you experience may well be that tiger within you, not to harm you, but to call you into recognition, fear, shame, hurt, or a subtle sorrow unnamed. When you stop running and silently say, "I see you. I accept you," that emotion can begin to release itself. Maybe not immediately, maybe not in the way you expect, but it will retreat. Like a child who stops crying when held in loving arms. Letting go of emotions doesn't mean denying them. It means not letting them drive you where they will. You may still be sad, but in that sadness is awareness. You may still be angry, but in that anger is insight. That presence causes the emotion to lose its unconscious power. It no longer controls you, it becomes a companion, sometimes uncomfortable, but at least honest. In the darkness of sleepless nights, as feelings rise in waves, you simply become a large stone resting solidly in the ocean, neither fighting nor fleeing, just remaining. You may have been taught, be strong. Don't let emotions control you. But in meditation, strength is not suppressing emotion. It is being spacious enough to face it without being swept away. No longer needing to pretend to be okay. No rush to be over it. No requirement to act fine. Just breathe with what is present, accepting it as part of your humanness. When you can do that, you cease to be a prisoner of your mind. You become the guardian of peace. Even when storms rage within, modern life teaches us to become something, a stronger self, a wiser self, a more peaceful self. Even on the meditation path, many carry an ideal in their minds, a person always calm, never angry, never anxious, never awkward. But that very expectation prevents us from touching the natural ease of the soul. If we demand that meditation is done just right, that sleep must arrive neatly, that stillness must be flawless, then any deviation becomes failure. In such comparisons and desires, the mind loses its own nature. Awakening is not becoming another self, but returning to your true self, honestly, gently, unadorned. Like water does not need absolute clarity to remain water. The mind doesn't need perfection to settle and shine. In meditation, the concept of returning matters more than progressing. A truly mindful person is not the one who sits motionless for hours, but the one who returns to the breath every time the mind drifts. Maybe you've been distracted 10 times during meditation, but what matters is that you return on the 11th. None of us is a bell that rings without ever shaking. None enters the night without carrying the scratches of the day. So don't wait for a perfectly quiet mind, no thought, no emotion, before calling it meditation. Meditation is the moment you see, oh, I just got carried away again. Without blame, without forcing, just noticing, and returning home again. Another story tells of a young, serious meditation student. He maintained perfect posture, walked slowly, ate mindfully, prided himself on rarely losing emotional control. One day he found an old teacher sitting by a stream, eating rice and drifting off to sleep. He frowned and asked, "Teacher, shouldn't we stay mindful all the time? Why do you eat and then doze like this?" The old teacher opened his eyes with a gentle smile. Mindfulness is not rigidity. Eat when you eat, sleep when you are sleepy. If you eat thinking of meditation, and sleep thinking of meditation, you are actually moving away from meditation, not toward it. Then the young student understood. Life need not be meditized, just lived fully in itself. Awakening is not becoming an ideal. It is allowing yourself to be real. Sometimes you are sad. Sometimes you feel tired. Sometimes you don't want to meditate. Don't want to listen to teachings. Don't want to do anything. In those moments, if you can simply breathe in and gently say, "This is how I feel," then breathe out without shame. That is profound mindfulness. No need to mirror anyone else. No need to be somewhere else. Just be truthful to your own experience, each breath, each sensation, each heartbeat, and awakening is already there. A woman shared that for years she felt she was meditating wrong. Each time she sat, her mind raced, thoughts surged. She tried, but the harder she tried, the more restless her mind became. Until a teacher told her, "If your mind is a noisy forest, meditation is not clearing the forest, but learning how to walk peacefully within it." Then she realized, she doesn't need to change to find peace. She only needs to walk slowly, gently, so she doesn't trample herself. When you lie in darkness at night, carrying unresolved fatigue, unmet expectations, remember, you don't need to be more meditative, more awakened. more perfect right now. You only need to be yourself, with all your imbalance, clumsiness, incompleteness, but breathing, staying, returning. Just as the moon doesn't try to shine, it simply appears. And in reflection on the lake, it is enough. A meditation teacher once said, "Emotions are guests. The mind is the house. Let them in, but don't let them take over the bed." This simple statement holds deep wisdom. We have the right to experience worries, anxiety, even despair, but that does not mean we must become those feelings. When we say, "I am feeling anxious," instead of, "I am an anxious person," transformation begins. It is like watching rain from under a porch. The rain still falls, but you remain dry. In the journey toward awakening, many carry an invisible measuring stick, checking whether we are enough peaceful, enough enlightened, enough calm, measuring every moment of distraction against an ideal we can never quite reach. Ironically, the harder we strive to be more awakened, the further we move from the natural state of the mind. The mind is not a stone that must be sculpted, but a stream that clears itself. Only when we stop trying to make the mind better do we begin to see its true beauty. Awakening does not require perfection, because perfection is about ego, while awakening is about returning, relaxing, and fully being present in whatever state you are. One of the greatest traps for meditators is the obsession with being right, good, peaceful. But that very obsession causes suffering. A Zen meditator named Ryoa once shared that in his early years at a mountain temple in Kyoto, he constantly blamed himself whenever his mind was not calm. If he became distracted, he felt he had failed. If he felt sadness or confusion, he thought he lacked discipline. One cold, long-sitting meditation, overwhelmed by self-judgment, he stood and walked out into the night and sat beneath a pine tree. Head bowed, his master came to sit beside him without a word. After a long silence with the wind rustling dry leaves, the master finally spoke. "Your mind does not need correcting. It needs compassion." Ryo wept, not out of regret, but because for the first time he felt allowed to be ordinary, a human learning to awaken. Not a perfect stone statue of a Buddha. Sleep is like meditation. The more we insist on being right, the further it drifts away. Many lie in bed, thinking, "I must sleep quickly. My mind must be still," and when they fail, self-blame begins. In that moment, awakening might simply be acknowledging, "I am trying too hard." Then exhale, softly. No more correction needed. Just as the moon is not perfectly round every night, our minds can be imperfect and still shine. Meditation does not ask you to become someone else. It merely opens a path to return home to your own raw, unfiltered self, without embellishment or expectation. Maybe today you feel no progress. Maybe you feel tired, aimless, disconnected. But that very recognition, held with kindness, is true mindfulness. You don't need to sit perfectly upright with hands in mudra and zero thoughts. Sometimes, placing your hand on your heart and gently saying, "I'm very human today," is enough to calm a storm. We often imagine a spiritual person to be calm and detached from life. But a monk once lived in the marketplace. He sold vegetables, laughed, got angry, got tired, and still smiled. When asked how he could live ordinarily and still uphold his practice, he replied, "I hold nothing. I simply live, but I don't forget that I am living." This is the essence of ordinary awakening, uncomplicated, unidealized, fully present in each action, each thought, each breath. If you are lying there in a long night without sleep, don't try to appear serene. Let yourself wrestle. Allow your mind to be genuine. If thoughts wander, simply notice that, without judgment. If you feel not good enough, ask, who is saying that? Then gently smile at yourself. In that darkness, you don't need to reach a special state. Just breathe, just be present, just let go of the image of a better self. By doing so, you've taken a profound step toward home, a place where everything is already enough. In dreamless nights when thoughts swirl like restless fish, people often feel silent failure to sleep on time, failure to stop thinking, failure to become the peaceful self they imagined. Yet at the heart of that, not good enough, lies a doorway into acceptance. Not surrender, but deep understanding. Awakening is not the absence of mistakes, but the ability to stay with your vulnerable moments without fleeing. A mindful heart is not one untouched by pain, but one that has learned tenderness with its scars. At a small temple in the mountains, a lay practitioner came regularly to learn meditation. A father, an office worker, a husband trying his best, he meditated hoping to find balance. Yet the more he sat, the more he felt inadequate. His mind raced, work, children, bills unfinished, and then self-judgment. What kind of meditation is this? One day he confessed to the elder teacher, "I feel unworthy of awakening. My mind is too messy." The teacher quietly pointed to a young Bodhi tree sprouting through rough rock and said, "See that sapling? It doesn't need rich soil to grow. Even hard stone cracks under enough light and rain. Your mind is the same, not perfect, but alive, if you stay present." Sleep, meditation, or any stillness should never be our measure of worth. They are simply means to return. If one night you only manage 5 breaths before the mind drifts, those 5 breaths are a treasure. If you lie in bed and thoughts continue to race, noticing that is a sign of mindfulness, as the sky does not need to be perfectly clear to be sky. The mind does not need to be perfectly calm to be mindful. A young meditation student once felt ashamed because he believed he had not arrived. He thought he got angry easily, got upset, preferred comfort, lacked compassion. He expected a stronger practice. When he shared this with his teacher, expecting a rigorous method, his teacher instead told him to cook a simple meal and eat it in silence. Afterwards he asked, "While you were eating, did you feel real?" The student nodded. The teacher smiled. "That is practice. No need to strain to be Buddha. Just be truly yourself." That awakened him. Real awakening isn't about reaching a benchmark, but about letting go of striving to be someone else. In the darkness of your night, when only your breath and heartbeat keep you company, try laying down all the expectations you used to set for yourself. Let go of the image of a perfect meditator, a deep sleeper, or a completely peaceful person. Return to simply being you, someone learning to breathe, learning to ease, learning to live with yourself without needing to fix anything. Your mind may still feel chaotic, but if you are breathing with it instead of resisting it, then that is already awakening. No need for adjustments or embellishment. Your quiet presence alone is the most precious gift. You have traveled a long distance, not because you've become someone different, but because you dared to look deeply into yourself. Awakening is actually very simple. It does not come from doing it right, but from releasing the need to do it right and seeing what is actually here. If each night you can gently close your eyes and whisper, "Today, I lived honestly," then you are walking the bright path, even though the darkness remains outside. Breath is the simplest thing, and often the most forgotten in daily life. We breathe every second, from birth to final exhale, but rarely truly live within each breath. Sometimes we pass an entire morning without noticing how many breaths we took. Many sleepless nights are spent desperately trying to fall asleep, to forget, to think differently, while forgetting there's a faithful friend with us, our breath. Breath doesn't demand anything, doesn't criticize when you're weak, doesn't abandon you when you're exhausted, doesn't judge you for not being better. It simply exists, steady, gentle, loyal like an underground stream, still flowing even if there's mud or stones on top. In meditation tradition, breath is seen as an anchor. It holds your body and mind so you don't drift with the tides of emotion. When you worry, the mind races into the future. When you regret, it spins into the past. But when you breathe, you return to the present, not some ideal present, but what actually is, whether messy, cold, or unsettled. Simply focusing on one inhale, one exhale brings you out of the thought loop, connects the mind to the body, and returns the spirit to its true home. Breath is not meant to make things disappear, but to help you become strong enough to stay. Peace doesn't come from elimination, but from full presence amid whatever is happening. A story tells of an old woodworker living in the forest. He was famed for crafting simple yet incredibly strong chairs. Asked for his secret, he replied simply, "I only breathe and carve." His apprentice didn't understand and asked to learn. For the first 3 months, the teacher wouldn't let him touch wood or tools. Only said, "Sit and learn to breathe deeply." The apprentice felt frustrated but persisted. On the 4th month, when he finally held the tool, he realized his hands were steadier, his eyes clearer, his mind calm. He understood then. It was the breath that created presence, and presence creates quality in whatever we do. Whether carving wood or living the day, sleep is the same. When the mind runs through thousands of thoughts, breath is the way home. No need to pressure yourself to fall asleep quickly. No need to count sheep. No need to chase away worries. Just bring attention to the breath, as if holding the hand of an old friend, no words. Just walking together. Inhale. Know you are inhaling. Exhale. Know you are exhaling. So simple it seems meaningless. Yet that simplicity holds the most tender power. It anchors you when thought wants to carry you away. Lost in anxiety? Return to one breath. Feeling unseen or misunderstood? Breathe deeply. So worn out you don't know what to do? Simply breathe and listen. Often the answer is not outside, but in the first breath you truly notice. A woman who suffered years of insomnia after losing her loved one found no cure in medicine or rituals. One night she heard a teaching on breath meditation. Instead of praying she must sleep. She placed her hand on her belly and attended to its gentle rise and fall. Inhale. I know I am alive. Exhale. I feel my grief. She didn't try to change her feelings, she just breathed with them. Soon tears came, not because she felt worse, but because for the first time in years she truly stayed with herself. Sleep followed, unexpectedly. More importantly, she rediscovered the anchor amid the storm. You don't need anything grand to find peace. Just bring your mind to one breath, and you touch the roots of tranquility. When you feel too tired to meditate, just breathe. When you feel too lost to pray, just breathe. When you lack energy to analyze your emotions, just breathe. In that moment, you become no longer a victim of life, but the one holding yourself through the night. There is no path through suffering without breath. In all life's turbulence, amid worldly noise or inner chaos, breath is where you return to. Without invitation, whether you are happy or sad, full of hope or utterly despairing, breath remains, a loyal friend never leaving. If you pause long enough, sit or lie quietly, and truly listen to your inhale and exhale, then in that moment you touch something real, near, sacred, not because breath is magical, but because you rarely truly live with it. Every time you return to your breath, you return to yourself, without judgment, without decoration, without escape. Ajahn Chah once said when asked how one stays peaceful if the mind keeps wandering, breath is the little bell of mindfulness. Each time you hear that bell, you return. If your mind wanders 100 times, you get 100 chances to come back. There is no shame in distraction. There is no blame in a busy mind. As long as you choose to return to the breath, you are walking the path of awakening, even if in small, halting steps. The breath doesn't demand calmness to begin, it only requires that you are alive. And that is enough. In a poor rural village in Nepal, a father lost his job after illness. His family struggled. Each night he lay beside his daughter, uncertain about tomorrow. One evening he wandered into the local temple and heard a young monk on breath meditation. He took nothing home except one thing: breath. From then on, every night he placed a hand upon his belly and breathed. His daughter, seeing him calmer, asked, "What are you doing, Father?" He smiled. "I'm finding back a bit of peace." Gradually, father and daughter breathed together each night. They remained poor, but no longer hopeless, because they had a place to return to. A small boat in the storm, their breath. Tonight, when there is no one beside you who fully understands your journey, you can still sit quietly, rest a hand on your chest, and feel life breathing through you. You don't need to completely understand your emotions. You don't need to eliminate your anxiety. You only need to breathe with it. Breathe like a door opening, to let the inner wind flow, to let accumulated dust drift away, to give the cramped space inside some expansion. Only when you stop and breathe, do you recognize how tense you've been, how tightly you've gripped, how long you've worn yourself out. Yet that recognition doesn't tire you further, it soothes you. Like a lost traveler finding a cool stream in the desert. A meditation teacher once said, "Emotions are guests. The mind is the house. Let them in, but don't let them take over the bed." This simple phrase conceals deep wisdom. We have the right to feel anxiety, worry, or despair, but that does not mean we must become those feelings. When you think, "I am feeling anxious," instead of, "I am an anxious person," transformation already begins. Like watching rain from beneath a porch, the rain still falls, but you remain dry. In your journey toward awakening, many carry an invisible measuring stick, measuring your peace, your understanding, your calmness, comparing every distraction to an impossible ideal. Ironically, the more you strive to become more awakened, the further you drift from your mind's natural state. The mind is not a stone to sculpt. It is a stream that purifies itself when allowed to flow freely. Only when you stop trying to make the mind perfect do you begin to see its inherent beauty. Awakening does not demand perfection. It is about releasing perfectionism and becoming fully present in whatever arises. One of the greatest traps in meditation is the idea of needing to be always right. Always good. Always peaceful. This very pressure becomes suffering. A practitioner named Ryo once shared that in his early years at a mountain monastery, he could not forgive himself for distraction or sadness. During a long cold sit, he left the hall in frustration and sat alone beneath a pine tree. His master came and sat silently beside him. After a long time and the rustle of leaves, the master softly said, "Your mind does not need fixing. It needs compassion." Ryo wept, not out of guilt, but because finally he felt allowed to be ordinary, a human learning to awaken. Not a perfect statue of a Buddha. Sleep is much like meditation. The harder you force it, the further away it slips. Many lie awake thinking, "I must sleep quickly. I cannot let my mind wander," and when they fail, guilt sets in. In such moments, awakening might simply be admitting, "I am trying too hard." Then exhale, gently. No further correction needed. Just as the moon is not always full, your mind can be imperfect and still shine. Meditation does not require you to become someone else. It simply opens a path back to your raw, unfiltered self, without embellishment or expectation. Maybe today you feel no progress. Maybe you feel tired, directionless, disconnected, but recognizing that, held with kindness, is true mindfulness. You do not need to sit perfectly upright, hands in mudra, without thought. Sometimes placing your hand over your heart and whispering, "I am very human today," is enough to soften a storm. We often imagine spiritual practitioners as always calm and detached. Yet a monk once lived in a marketplace, selling vegetables, laughing, getting angry, getting tired, and still smiling. When asked how he could live ordinarily yet remain spiritually grounded, he replied, "I hold nothing. I simply live, but I do not forget that I am living." That is everyday awakening, unpretentious, non-idealized, fully present in every gesture, thought, and breath. If you are lying awake tonight, don't pretend to be serene. Allow yourself to be restless. Let your mind be genuine. If thoughts wander, simply notice, without judgment. If you feel not good enough, ask, "Who is saying that?" Then smile softly at yourself. In the darkness, you don't need to reach a special state. Just breathe. Just be present. Just let go of the image of a better self. In doing so, you have taken a profound step toward home, a place where everything is already enough. On dreamless nights, when your mind churns with unfinished thoughts, you may feel a silent failure, failure to sleep on time, failure to stop thinking, failure to achieve the peaceful ideal you imagined. But within that feeling of inadequacy lies a door to acceptance, not surrender, but deep understanding. Awakening is not the absence of mistakes, but the capacity to remain with your vulnerable moments without running. A truly awakened heart isn't unscarred, but it has learned tenderness with its wounds. At a small mountain temple, a layperson came to meditate. A father, an office worker, a husband doing his best, he struggled with meditation. Feeling inadequate, One day he confessed to the elder teacher, "My mind is too messy. I feel unworthy of awakening." The teacher gestured to a small Bodhi sapling growing through cracked stone and replied, "See that sapling? It doesn't need fertile soil to grow. Even hard stone cracks with enough light and rain. Your mind is the same, not perfect, but alive, if you stay present. Sleep, meditation, or stillness should never define your worth. They are only means to come home. If one night you can breathe for just 5 moments before drift, those 5 breaths are treasure. If your mind races even when you lie down, that noticing is mindfulness. As the sky does not need to be cloudless to be sky. The mind does not need to be calm to be mindful. A young meditator once fell into turmoil thinking he had not arrived. He felt anger easily, got upset, sought comfort, lacked compassion, like many. Expecting a stronger path, he asked his teacher. The teacher told him to cook a simple meal and eat in silence. Afterwards he asked, "When you ate, did you feel real?" The student nodded. The teacher smiled. "That is practice. No need to strain to be Buddha. Just be truly yourself." That moment awakened him. True awakening is not striving toward a standard. It is releasing the struggle to become someone other than who you are. A woman once endured a painful divorce. She lost her trust in herself, in love, and in the future. For many months, she lived like a shadow, only performing what was necessary, finding no joy in anything. One day, she happened to attend a Dhamma talk by a meditation teacher. She did not remember the talk's content, only one phrase, "every day." You may choose to live as victim, or live as someone learning how to move forward. That phrase touched the softest part of her heart, not because it was grand, but because it returned something she had lost: responsibility for her own feelings and actions. The next morning, she began the day with something very small. She made her bed. Then she brewed a cup of tea and sat quietly for a few minutes. She did not demand herself to feel happy. She simply chose not to repeat old patterns. Every day, she did something small for herself, read a sutta verse, practice a few mindful breaths, write one honest line of reflection. Some days were smooth, other days she broke down again, sank into doubt, or let go, but now she no longer blamed her circumstances. She understood that healing does not come from outside, it comes from how she chooses to perceive, to breathe, to act. In the end, what she found was not someone or something, but herself, imperfect, but genuine and present. You may be going through a difficult phase. You may have lost direction, forgotten who you are, failed at maintaining mental peace. Yet even then, if you continue to listen, continue to return to the breath, continue to humbly admit, "Every change begins within me," then you are planting a seed of awakening. You do not need grand gestures. You only need honesty with yourself. You only need to stop blaming fate, others, or the past. You only need to look at your life with an unprejudiced gaze. You only need to dare to take responsibility, not to self-judge, but to begin anew, even with a very small step. In Zen, there is a teaching called direct pointing to the human mind. No detours, no excuses, no long explanations. The truth is not somewhere far away. It lies right within your own mind that aches, that trembles, that feels worn. Only when you dare to face it without hiding, without dressing it up, without escape, do you truly see. Everything that caused your suffering also had roots in how you reacted, how you waited, how you refused to let go. And from that recognition you clearly see an undeniable truth. You are the only one who can open the door of liberation for yourself. If tonight you are listening to these words, and your heart sinks because you see how many things you once left to fate, then please do not blame yourself. Everyone has done that, but from this moment forward, you can choose otherwise. You do not need much. You do not need to instantly change your life. Just one promise to yourself: I will not turn away from my life any longer. And so, day by day, you return, step by step. You stand up straight, breath by breath. You keep walking, not as a victim of circumstance, but as your own loving companion. Thank you for journeying this far. Now, allow yourself to release all thoughts. Like a leaf falling in midnight, all the teachings shared so far, all the seeds sown, they may have touched you. Some may still feel distant, but they lie quietly within the soil of your mind, waiting for the right moment to sprout. You do not need to force remembrance. You do not need to cling. Just rest, just ease. Because the deepest truth of meditation is not in knowledge, but in letting go. Imagine you are sitting beside a perfectly calm lake, where the moonlight spills like gentle milk. A soft breeze stirs pine branches without disturbing the water, only gently touching the heart that is slowly settling. The scent of incense drifts like an ancient whisper, awakening childhood memories of dawns so peaceful even one breath felt safe. In the distance, a temple bell echoes slowly and long, dissolving into stillness as if time itself has stopped. You do not need to go anywhere anymore. You do not need to seek anything else. You are here, and here is home. If your mind still wiggles, if there are things you cannot yet release, please do not force yourself to be peaceful right now. Just close your eyes, breathe deeply yet gently, then softly smile to yourself. Even if storms rage outside, my mind can be a sky calm enough to hold them. Each breath is a return. Each moment of presence is embracing yourself, without needing to change, without needing to fix. Just being you is enough. Thank you for listening with your whole heart. If this journey has touched a quiet corner of you, please do not keep it to yourself. Share it so that the seed of awakening may spread. Do not forget to subscribe to Silent Soul Garden, where stories, whispers of meditation, will continue waiting for your return night after night, moment after moment. Wishing you a truly deep sleep. Wishing you a light and gentle morning. Wishing you, always yourself, in the gentlest peace.